We are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Back on Track. I am your host, Brother Ghazi. It's a podcast where we are committed to providing stories that will inspire, impact, and empower you to make changes and level up in your personal life and your business. And today we have with us my good brother and friend and colleague in the entrepreneurial world, the great Jason Wolfe. How you doing, brother Jason? Let's get right into it, man.
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I am blessed, man. I am blessed. All is well. All is well. Um, how's your day going? How's the family?
Oh, we're going good, man. I just got out of the dentist, so today's going to be interesting. Half my mouth is numb, and the other half is good. So hopefully I don't slobber all over the place while I'm talking,
Yes,
and
sir.
people look at me all kinds of crazy.
Right. Oh, yeah, man. But you got to go to the dentist and get them teeth right, though. And how your family doing
That's
in light
right.
of COVID?
I, oh man, we've been blessed because one thing that we have decided to do is not give in to the panic and not give in to any anxiety because we know as long as we put God first, He takes care of everything and any situation. Because, I mean, when just growing up, I came from a crazy family, six kids, single mom, and my mom she had a newspaper route. She worked at Sears when it was available back in the day, and she was also volunteered as a school teacher. So she was doing all three of those things, trying to raise six kids by herself. So I know what it means to struggle. My kids, they don't know anything what it means to struggle. I have my daughter with me right now. Her biggest struggle is she had her friends over and they didn't clean her room. That's it.
Right. And
you know.
yeah. Well, times have definitely changed from the time we was coming up. But it's interesting that you have your daughter with you. Can you share with the listeners why you have your daughter with you right now? Well, one of the
Yeah, the reason why I
reasons.
have my daughter, yeah, one of many reasons is because growing up, I always knew that my mom was going through something, and not that I could, have the means to help, to buy or comfort her or anything, but I just always wondered what was so different or why my mom acted a certain way. And growing later on, she opened up to me about the things that she had to face in her life, and I always wondered. I asked her one day. I was like, "Mom, how come you got six kids, but only two of us have the same dad? Like, what's going on with that?" She was like, "You know what? That's none of your business. Don't be talking like that." you know. And I said, it is what it is. But now that I know, it's just that my mom was in a place where she was hurting. She was going from one relationship to the next. But later on, she found God and cleared up all the hurt and all the pain that she was going through. One thing that that kind of that we identify with is we believe that there are family curses that can be broken, and one of the family curses that we know about is just uh, illegitimacy, like a fatherless generation, or just being in drugs. Like those kinds of things continue to pass on from one generation to the next until one person decides to stand up and say, you know what, I'm no longer going to accept that. I'm no longer going to accept, financial situations going left when I want my financial situations to go right. I'm no longer going to accept, being put down by family members, by people that want to belittle me, and I just take it in, because one thing about my family is we've all been the type of people that are just nice. And I asked her that because she is an entrepreneur as well as myself. And I said, why is it that we're so nice? And it's just that we've gone through so much hurt that we don't want to make other people feel bad. But that's not the way that you need to direct your life. Because growing up in my house, it was just me. I was the youngest out of 6 kids. At 4 years old, well, you know how you can remember like your earliest memory, like when you were a little kid.
Right.
My first memory is my brothers molesting me, and then them bringing in a friend to do the same thing. And then after that, my second memory is
Okay, I think Jason froze here.
Jay.
Okay, Jason,
Am
you're freezing
I
up
still?
real
Can you
bad
still see
right
me?
now. Yeah, we can hear you now, but you're freezing up real bad. Okay, I don't know. We lost Jason there, but he was talking about his earliest memory was of being molested by his brothers and their friends when he was a young boy, and that's a hell of a memory to have. I've interviewed uh, quite a few sisters who've gone through child molestation, but not really men. I haven't gone through this process. All right, Jason, you back with us? Okay, you freezing up real bad, Jason.
It's when people touch you inappropriately and you don't want their permission.
Yeah. So I think we lost Jason. Hopefully we'll get him back in a minute here. Hold on, like he's trying to come back in. Okay, Jason, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, we lost you for a minute. Oh,
Can you hear me now? Can you see me and hear me?
well, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, let me see what's going on with this camera. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So you stopped off on your earliest memory was when you were being molested by your brothers and a friend. Man, he having bad connections. Okay, we're gonna leave him out until he um get his mic together. But listen, so this story, I was talking to his brother the other day, and he was telling me about how he got molested, and I asked him, was it a male or female that molested, which it don't make a difference whether it's male or female. It makes a difference, but it don't make a difference in terms of the hurt and the pain. But he was sharing with me how his early memory in his life was of his brothers now, his big brothers molesting him. He was the youngest, and the effect that had on him. And this is a something that goes on. Oftentimes, when we think of sexual abuse, we think about women. But right now, it's a growing phenomenon with our young boys, and most of the times, our young boys are less quick to say something about something like that. So when he was sharing that with me, I thought that was very courageous for a man to share with another man and with the world that I've been sexually abused. It's courageous for anybody to do that, even a woman to do that, because many women live and suffer in silence. They go through those type of things, but they suffer in silence. But when a man go through it and things like that, it's on a whole nother level, right? And I think we're trying to bring Jason back in here. All right, Jason, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry about that. The airport.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah. Okay, so man, you
Yeah.
had
So
stopped off at your earliest memory was when your brothers and them
yeah.
molested you.
Right. And then the other thing was my sister. She had a mask connected to a bong, And she was just like, I was only 4 years old at the time, and she was like, breathe in, and I was like, okay. And that's when I was first introduced to marijuana. And so I went from there to my dad, my real dad. I was just like, hey, where are you going one day? And he goes, I'm going to the grocery store. And something in my heart was like, he's not going to no grocery store. That dude, something's not right. And that was the last time that I ever saw my dad. So here I am growing up in this environment like that. My dad leaves. My mom is, all over the place. Next thing you know, my mom gets remarried, and they moved to another country, Panama, and then I lived with my grandparents. Now, my grandparents were hardcore Christians. So I went from this crazy environment to going to church every Sunday, never really deep diving into my own issues because nobody knew what was going on. I didn't talk about it. I just kept going on with life. And then, but I remember my grandmother being so strict. I'm a musician, and I don't even know how I became a musician because every time I went to listen to music that wasn't Christian, my grandmother was like, look, you can't listen to classical music or nothing unless it's glorifying God. Because all that other stuff is the devil's music. And I was like, oh, okay. So I listened to nothing but Christian music, growing up in her house. And I remember every time I tried to even ask a question about certain things, I would get, beat for it. So I grew up in an environment to not really ask questions because it would cause some kind of, I would have to face some kind of consequence. So that's the way that I grew up. Never healed, still not being able to question or ask questions about anything. But as I started getting older, started becoming a teenager, I went from living with my grandparents to living with my mom again because they had just got back from Panama. Now, when I was with my grandparents, I was around farmers, white people that were just, country type folks. I go to Georgia or North Carolina, and this is the first time I'm around black people, my people. I was so scared. I was like, what? They look like me, but they don't act like me. Why are they so rough? Why are they so angry? What's wrong with them? Then they come to me, they're like, why you talk white? And I was like, I don't know. Why you talk country? And it was just, and so here I am trying to figure myself out again. And then I go through my teenage years, and I'm just trying to figure out who I am. So the only people that I could open up to were punk rockers, Jamaicans, people from the islands, and that's what led me to a lifestyle of just, smoking weed. But then it got so hard that I didn't open up to anybody. So I had all these questions going on in my mind, how come I grew up like this? What was going on with me? So I got hard more and more and more into drugs, and I was doing meth, and I was doing acid, and I was doing cocaine and smoking weed and drinking, sometimes all at the same time for several months. My mom would, back in the day we didn't have cell phones, but she would always wonder where I was at. One time she dropped me off at school in high school, and then I came back a week later. Now, in this day and time, if your kid comes back a week later, you can call police, something. But she knew that I was with some friends that were up to no good. But as soon as I came home, man, I heard my life almost ended. Never did that again. But it's I was going through all of this searching, trying to find out who I was, what was going on. But when I finally was just so sick and tired of feeling guilty and not getting answers, I went to church and I gave my heart to God, gave my heart to Jesus, and that's when I started finding answers for my life questions. It was like all the stuff that I have been through, I could be an answer to someone else's situation of how to get out of it. Because it's to get out of molestation, you need to make sure that your heart is right, that your mind is right, and that you forgive that person, because you don't know what they were going through during that time. My brothers, they actually called me a long time ago, and they asked me to forgive them for doing that, and I did. My mom, she asked me to forgive her for some of the stuff that was going on, because she didn't know how to, as parents, we do the best that we can, but there's no perfect parent out there. We only are parenting in our current situation based off the knowledge that we have. So I forgave my brothers, I forgave my mom, I even forgave my dad for leaving, and it is like all of that bitterness and confusion and everything just erased off me. And now, when it comes to my business and being an entrepreneur, to help motivate them, not only spiritually or on their business, but help them, spiritually a little bit. Not that I'm a huge spiritual leader, because everything that I've gone through, God was able to use all of that to help me in where and what I'm doing today.
Right. And so let me ask you, going through identity crisis, when you say, you first encountered Black people on that large magnitude, when you went to North Carolina and Georgia, what did you do to really, because we live in a society that's racialized.
Right.
We live in a society, so Denise is on, to say peace and blessings. Greetings to the Denise. And so, we live in we don't live in a post-racial society. We live in a society that is highly racialized, that makes a distinction between colors and ethnicities. That's the kind of society we live in, right? So,
right.
What did you do in terms of your ethnicity? I know you found God. You went to the church, but as a Black man, even in the church, because the church at one time, the people in the church, some of the preachers were some of the biggest slave masters. They were some of the biggest people that was promoting Jim Crow and segregation and lynchings and things like that. So even as a Black man, how did you find your identity ethnically, even up in the spiritual world? How do you relate to yourself as a Black man still up in that world like that?
That's a great question, because do you remember back in the 80s, or no, it'd be in the 90s, when we used to wear these medallions where it was like African pride, and we would wear all these clothes about, Africanness, and, I'm Black. But then it got crazy when it was like, oh, you're light-skinned, so you're not Black enough, or you're too dark, so you're that. So I kind of started saying, hey, well, what is all this about? And when I started getting around certain Black people, I realized that there was a difference in their mentality. Because, number one, my grandmother, she was from New York. Or my grandparents are from New York. So they grew up in a culture. They know about Harlem and all that. So they kind of bleeded some of that. That was kind of some seeds that were planted when they were talking about how they grew up back in New York. But then when I started getting around Black people, and I've always wondered why I like to dance so much, or why I thought a certain way about certain things, and what I could joke about, and just finding my pride in who I was as a Black man. I was just like, man, I can identify with these people, because I don't care. I'm not being racial, but Black people and white people think different about a lot of things, and it's not on purpose. When I get around Black people, we talk about things that we're gonna do, overcoming things. how we can improve and be better, help our community. When growing up with white people, we didn't have discussions like that. It was just like, this is how life is. I can't wait to get this car. I can't wait to get this house. But it was like we already knew it was gonna happen. But with black people, we're building it like a movement, and so that was the only way that I was able to click, was just by having. I had this one guy. He was actually a great mentor to me. He played the piano and he was a musician, and he pulled me to the side, and he always told me, Jason, you have so much potential in you. You have so much growth in you, like you don't even realize what God has already put in you to touch other people. And that made me look at black men as people that I could dive into. So that's how I've started finding my identity, was just by surrounding myself with people like that, and just actually talking to them, befriending them, and having them mentor me.
Right. And man, so for those who are listening, sometimes it seems strange, for a black man, because I've met other brothers. I met a brother once who, he's a very successful entrepreneur right now, very brilliant brother. But he grew up in a part of Michigan that it was more uppity, it was more white oriented and things like that, right? So he said to me that he didn't know he was a black man until the Million Man March. He had just heard of the minister. Some guys he worked with was talking about Minister Farrakhan, and about this great march that black men going to D.C. in '95, right? And he said it inspired him, so he went. But he said he went and he was in a sea of 2 million black men, and he said it was at that point that he found out. Now he dark, he ain't no light skinned brother. But he said it was at that point with the Million Man March that he found out that he was even a black man. He thought his world view was so different. It was shaped by the environment that he come up in, and that that suburban, mostly white type environment. And he talk about struggling with that kind of identity. Coming to grips with his own ethnicity, because sometimes we think, especially once we get into religion, we think that everything is all right, and we kind of lose, what's real. So we think that, the Lord accepts everybody, so we think everything is all right. But we know, historically speaking, religion has been used as a tool to oppress, to repress. Like I said earlier, many of the slave masters, many of the people that was lynching us and hanging us, some of them was preachers. They're lynchers, hang a nigga up from a tree and then go to church on Sunday and preach their Sunday sermon like ain't nothing happened, because they didn't see us as human. We were subhuman. So that's a hell of a like struggle to still be dealing with. And how old are you right now?
How old am I?
Yeah.
44.
So you 44. So here's a black man in this time struggling with his own identity. That lets us know how pervasive this problem is in this country, and how we all got to come to grips with that. But we thank God you did come to that point of view. So how does that affect you in terms of raising your children and things like that? Did you kind of teach them about their history and their culture, as well as spirituality and God and business?
Oh yeah. What's funny is I'll ask them all kinds of questions. Oh, so with that being said, I didn't even know who Harriet Tubman was until I started going to church. I didn't even know who like other black people invented all kinds of things until Black History Month was on into my life when I was, I'd say, maybe 10 years ago. And that's right. And when so I teach kids all about it, like we talk about it, because they're mixed. And I just let them know, it's important to know both sides of your culture, because we've all come from somewhere, and the strongest people are the people that know their history, because there's that saying that history repeats itself. So what part of your history are you repeating right now that you're not even aware of? So I talk to my daughter, like my daughter right now, I have her with me. We always talk about being an entrepreneur, what it's like being mixed. I asked them last week. I said, do you feel like it's a struggle being mixed, like in a school where it's predominantly white kids? And they're like, no, there's really no difference. And I don't think they really even comprehend anything, because in this day and time, there was especially during the time where the policeman was sitting on the guy's head, and everybody was so angry and upset that how could a police officer do this, police brutality and all that. All this stuff came up, and I remember one thing that Ice Cube said. Well, yeah, actually, I was watching one of his lives, and he says, right now it would be really difficult to be in a mixed home, because how are you raising your kids and what are you telling them? And in my home, it wasn't really that difficult, because my kids know who they are, and they know how to read people, because not everyone is racist, not everyone is full of hatred, but the ones that are, if they refuse to be taught or to be aware of, there's nothing that we can do to change their mind. We have to just move forward. So as I continue to discover more of who I am as a black man, I'm able to share that same information with my children.
Yeah. And so, what are your children mixed with? Is it white and black?
Yep, just black and white.
Okay. So let me ask you, and this is a topic that I've had with many people. So, like, as you grow in your identity as a black man, of course, because this society is so racialized, it's like racism is built in the very fabric of this society. Education, religion, politics, medical, all of it, right? How do you like reconcile? Because I know sometimes as you grow into who I am as a black man, but then you go among like black women and you go among black people. Do people look at you like, oh man, he'll sell out? Oh man, he didn't so. And then you talk proper, and have you gone through things like that? Like people saying, man, you're Uncle Tom, man. You a sellout. I ain't trying to hear all that. Have you gone to situations where you are growing in your identity as a brother, and then people telling you, no, you ain't black enough. So, we don't accept you over here because you ain't no real brother. Have you gone through that?
Right. Yep. I've gone through that so many times, because it's like, it's kind of funny. When I was in Georgia and in North Carolina, everybody kind of made fun of me, and they were just like, wow, that's funny that you talk like that. But we got along, and we just learned off of each other. But as soon as I come to Arizona, it's like white people are like, what kind of black man is that? And then black people were like, he's not black. He's mixed. He's an Oreo. And I was just like, how is it in the South I was able to get along with people, and then I come to Arizona and everybody's tripping on what my culture is? And how come white people are more concerned about how I am than black people? Like, that made absolutely no sense to me. And so, but what I did with that, I said, you know what? I am who I am. And yeah, sometimes it does get to me when people say I talk a certain way, or I do certain things. But I can change the mindset about who I am as a person. I am who I am. And I don't know what the big deal is for somebody to find out why I'm not black or not black enough, or why it concerns them. But it doesn't bother me, because I know who I am as a person, and I know that I'm black, and I know that I'm raising these kids. The only thing I look at is, who am I helping today? How am I as a person? If it was a situation where it affected me, where I was confused about life or about anything, then it would be a problem. But it's not. But that really does kind of bother me, why people try to, if you don't fit in a category, they try to put you in one. And when you're black and you talk white and you're an entrepreneur, but you're not selling drugs, it's like they're confused. They don't know what to do.
Right. And I'm a clarify and say because I hear a lot of people say if you talk proper, you talking white. And to me, that's some BS because it makes the standard of excellence like white people got perfect. I know some white people talk crazy as hell. That they are, I know some black people that are very articulate, and so I don't put proper what they call proper English, whatever the hell that is. I don't know what proper English is. I think the English is over in London is probably proper English. Crocodile Dundee type stuff is probably proper English. But what people call proper English, when somebody say if you talk proper, they say you talking white. That's making the standard once again, like whites are the standard of excellence. And I just don't buy into that. I don't think people that talk proper. I used to say that when I was coming up. Man, he talk white because in my mind I was socialized and taught that everything white was superior, that it was better, that their ice was colder, their green, the grass was greener. I was taught that indirectly and directly in the school system. But when you start growing up and know your history and know who you are and be comfortable with who you are, you can coexist in a world where people look at things like that and you can still have that pride and things like that. So that's a hell of a struggle, man, to deal with and overcome. And it's pervasive in our society right now. A lot of people are dealing with it.
Right, and we shouldn't, because it's kind of it's just terrible that like when white people talk, they have a little bit of slang, and they're praised. They're like, oh, talk like you're black, like they're praised for it. They're lifted up for it, like they have an edge to them if they talk black. But when a black person talks white, so quote unquote, they're put down for it. And how dare you talk educated? So it's like they're trying to put and keep us in that slave mentality of, oh, this is your limit. This is as high as you can go. If you get above this, then you're weird, because you're going to be teaching other people the same thing. We don't want that.
Right.
But that's why I'm here. I'm here to break that cycle. I'm here to break that chain. I'm here to break that mentality. I'm a representation of being a black man that can achieve things, be connected to black people, be connected to white people, but still let people know that there's a standard that black people can live by. You don't have to put us in a category. And if you still do, then that's not a problem that I have to handle. That's a problem that you have.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell you, just some like some personal testimony, right? So we come up in, I come up in a predominantly all black communities in St. Louis, East St. Louis. We didn't really have whites in our community. It may have been one old person or something, but like wasn't no white children, there wasn't none of that, unless they was busting into our school, but they didn't live into our community, right? But during the desegregation program, they came into our school. So I come up just naturally, it was like hostility between blacks and whites. They didn't have to teach us this, because most of the whites that came to the community was the police, and they was always messing with the brothers. So it was always a clash, And so I grew up thinking in terms of this clash, this type of hostility, right? And so many of us as black folk, and I know many people, they talk this pro-black. They so pro-black. But a lot of people got to understand that pro-black don't mean anti-white, for one. I'm just for my people. I want to help my community. It don't mean I'm against nobody else. It don't mean I'm against no other community. But what I've seen was a lot of brothers who in that movement, in that pro-black, Afrocentric type movement, they can coexist as giants as long as they're among black people. Because in their mind, they learned a few things, they read a few books, so they can regurgitate some information, and they giants among our own people. But I've seen these same ones, when they get around white people, they purr like little pussycats. They was like meowing. I mean, they didn't say too much of nothing. They was like, I'm not gonna talk, because they felt intimidated with all the history that we know, knowing that how we created pyramids and Imhotep, and we the original people, and we gave birth to science and mathematics and astronomy and all that as our people. With all that we know, somewhere in our minds still, this society is so ingrained in that white supremacy, black inferiority type complex, that when these brothers go into that environment, excuse me, where it's white people that are on the move and they're educated, they felt very intimidated. And I used to watch that, and that phenomenon amazed me. How you can be so strong and black over here in the community, but that same brother over here in an environment where entrepreneurs or quote unquote educated white folks is at, man, they don't say nothing. They don't have nothing to say because they felt intimidated, right? So it's amazing that you can go between them with confidence. That's my point. With confidence,
Right.
I don't have to go among them and and be less than myself and be other than myself. I can go among anybody, white, black, brown, red, yellow, Chinese. It don't make a difference, and just be me. And what we'll find out is that when we do that, we got more power in our authenticity. Just be yourself. And if you need improvement, improve yourself. When I say be yourself, now, if you raunchy and you grimy, you want to get better with that. That's all. But you want to be who you are, but you want to just improve yourself,
Right. Right. Exactly. And that's why self improvement is so critical. Reading has kept me. I've been. I recently shared with you how I've been going to YouTube and just searching for things that I personally deal with, and how there's other people out there that deal with the same stuff, but they've overcome it. And yeah, we can read the Bible, we can talk to friends and all that, but when you're by yourself and those thoughts start coming up, we need to work on those thoughts, because if you don't work on those, then you're gonna feel some type of way when you're in certain crowds, and they could just say good morning to you, but because of the way that you're feeling, the way your mind is, you're gonna be like, oh, I know why they're saying good morning to me, because of this situation or that situation, and they have no intention of even coming at you a certain type of way. So that's why it's so critical to stay in a mindset where you're constantly reading something that's going to keep you in that lane so you can stay confident no matter where you're at. And that will help you. That's helped me overcome the struggle of being around white people and not feeling intimidated. Because, boy, they are the first to be happy to share a racial joke.
Yes, sir. And man, I'm gonna tell you, I appreciate you sharing that, and even sharing your story, and this for a lot of people. So I didn't know what direction, on this interview would take, because your story is rich with so many lessons, and but I think that part right there of you growing into that confident, like black man, with being sure about yourself and not being intimidated and not shrinking when you get around other people. Many of us can learn lessons from that. Many brothers from the quote unquote hood can learn lessons from that, because you see killers. He said something about that slave mentality. We'd shoot up each other all day long. When I was young, I heard a man give a lecture. He said that back on the plantation, you had that big strapping burly black man, 6 feet, 6'6", 280 pounds, muscular and things like that. But he said, and it could be 20 of them on the plantation, but they were like purr, and they would submit when one white guy on the horse and the whip came around, because that slave mentality was so ingrained in us that we think that they are so superior and things like that. Many of us still deal with that, even those who call ourselves black. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you an example how deeply ingrained that is. When I was in prison, right, I used to walk around with some of the old heads, some of the older brothers who were schooling me, right? They teach me politics, black history, and things like that, right? And I remember one day we walking around the yard, right? Now here I am, I'm part of the Black Studies Department. I'm in the Nation of Islam. I'm thinking I'm very black man. I know our history and all that kind of stuff, right? But look at what I said to this. I'm like about 19 years old. One of the brothers had straight hair, right? And his name was Twin. So we walking around the yard, and they schooling me. They put me up when they went. They teach me a lot of things, right? I look at Twin and I say to the brother, I say, "Hey man, was you born with good hair?" And he looked at me and he said this. He said, "What make you think my hair is good? If you say my hair is good, that implies that kinky hair or nappy hair is not good." Now here I am thinking I'm super black. I done read all these books and stuff like that. but this is so ingrained in my mind. I still think on some levels that they're superior. On some level, that what's associated with them is good, and adversity what's associated with me is bad. So with all the books that we read, that don't shape all of the, somebody, if you talk proper, you talking white. If you got straight hair, that's good hair. You know what I'm saying? If you got blue eyes and hazel eyes and all that, them pretty eyes, they got some pretty eyes, right? As though black eyes and brown eyes, you know what I'm saying? So
right.
it's so ingrained in us, and we got to battle it on like all levels, not just one level. We got to battle that mentality on all levels. And I commend you, man, for doing what you're doing. So let's talk about a little bit as we wind down what you're doing as an entrepreneur, with your financing company, and how you helping the community with that.
Well, I have to give it to, number one, to God, but to my mom for even showing me what it's like to be an entrepreneur, because she would bring people to the house, and she's a seamstress. So she did fashion shows, and she was always dealing with people and just, being a blessing at first, and then it turned into a business. So with that mentality, I brought that same thing into Wolfe Financial. What I do is I help people with credit repair, help them with budgeting, help them with all kinds of things to make sure that their finances are where it needs to be. Because that whole thing, you can't talk about investing or building anything if you don't know the basics about finances. And the basics are saving, budgeting, credit, stuff like that. So what has been awesome is I've been able to connect with realtors in the community. I've been able to connect with schools in the community. I've even been able to connect with women's groups in the community, and they've allowed me to go into certain places and talk to them. As a matter of fact, a month ago, I went into a rehabilitation center, and me and my business partner, we gave them some financial education. And when we were getting ready to leave, the director came to me and said, "You know what? We need to have you guys back." He says, "We've had many speakers come here and talk to these kids, but they've never, ever had an applause. They never stood up for anybody. They never asked questions. But you guys seem to really, connect with people." And that's what I'm doing in the community, is just making sure that people are able to see that there's another way out, that they don't have to stay in their financial situation. Because once your finances get straight, your mind opens to a whole lot of other things.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, that's definitely a good point. I know a person coming up in poverty and, welfare and food stamps and, all that, once you get a level of financial success, and then, once you reach that level, then you have a responsibility to go and pull other people up. Some people, they make it on the other side of the tracks, and they be like, "The hell with that, I ain't going nowhere near the hood no more. I ain't talking to none of them. I'm just gone," and they just enjoy their life. But you can't really feel content. I'm not really happy as a person until I help somebody else, until I want for my brother and sister what I want for myself. If I want success, if I want financial stability, I want a beautiful family, a beautiful home, some land, and some generational wealth. I want that for my brother and sister as well. And that's the mentality we got to have. That's why I love that quote that I always say: if you want that African proverb, if you want to go far, you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you want to go together and go with a team. But man, brother, we appreciate you sharing your story with us, brother. That was amazing, and we look forward to great things coming from you. This is the great Jason Wolfe. He say ahead of the pack, the Wolf Pack, and brilliant man, powerful story, brother. And we wish you the best, and pray that you and your family stay safe out there. You got any closing words? If you got like somebody out here who may be struggling with that identity crisis, or somebody who's struggling with, to understand entrepreneurship, what kind of closing words would you give them?
The closing words that I would give is, when it comes to finding your identity, find out who you are in God first. Because when you put God first, he's able to clear a lot of things for you. And then what's going to happen is God is going to connect you to the right people at the right time to help you get to where you need to go. Just don't give up. Stay motivated and keep pushing.
All right. Okay. And Keisha Lasan, she say thanks for sharing. She hopes to connect. That's a phenomenal and amazing sister. Very powerful, doing a lot of good work down in, I believe, in Memphis, if I'm not mistaken. She's still down in Memphis, Tennessee. Very powerful sister. Thank you, Keisha, for tuning in. And thank you all for tuning in. If you listen to this live or you will listen to a replay, we appreciate you. We pray that all of you stay safe during this pandemic season. Do your due diligence. The holidays is coming up. Don't be reckless. Mask up, protect yourself, and try to be safe out here. So thank you, my brother. We appreciate you sharing your amazing story with us, and you all have a blessed day.
All right, you too.